artificial intelligence is set to decimate white-collar jobs. That's the message from Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic, in a new interview with Axios. The article is called Behind the Curtain, a white-collar bloodbath. And in it, Amodei warns that AI could wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs and spike unemployment to 10 to 20% in the next 1 to 5 years. Now, Anthropic is one of the biggest AI companies, I suppose, along with Google DeepMind and OpenAI. Its CEO is one of the most active in speaking to the press, and we've covered his statements before on recent shows. He likes making very big claims. And this is what he said the exponential growth of AI models, or the power of AI models, could deliver in the very near future. So he says, cancer is cured, that's good. The economy grows at 10% a year, fine, fabulous. The budget is balanced, great. And 20% of people don't have jobs. So that's the downside. I mean, also, as we've talked about in previous shows, the other downside could be if this AI outsmarts us and then decides that it doesn't need humans around. But we'll park that to one side for this segment. Perhaps ironically, one of the first jobs to be destroyed by generative AI are some of the people who created it, coders. So the Axios article makes reference to the boss of another AI superpower, Mark Zuckerberg. So Meta, obviously, I'm also very heavily invested in AI. So Axios says Zuckerberg in January told Joe Rogan, probably in 2025, we at Meta, as well as the other companies that are basically working on this, are going to have an AI that can effectively be a sort of mid-level engineer that you have at your company that can write code. He said this will eventually reduce the need for humans to do this work. And then shortly after, Axios says, Meta announced plans to shrink its workforce by 5%. Now, one consequence of this all, as well as an increase in unemployment generally, will be that it's harder for people to enter industry, so recent graduates, for example, because junior jobs are the ones that it's easiest to automate. So earlier this month, an executive at LinkedIn made precisely this point in the New York Times. So in the piece, the exec wrote this: in tech, advanced coding tools are creeping into the tasks of writing simple code and debugging, the ways junior developers gain experience. In law firms, junior paralegals and first-year associates who once cut their teeth on document reviews are handing weeks of work over to AI tools to complete in a matter of hours. And across retailers, AI chatbots and automated customer service tools are taking on duties once assigned to young associates. These changes coincide with a shift appearing in the latest employment numbers. The unemployment rate for college grads has risen 30% since September 2022, compared with about 18% for all workers. Obviously, this creates a lot of problems because obviously, at the moment, it's hard to automate those senior jobs, but it's quite easy. Well, it's getting easier to automate those sort of lower ranking jobs. Obviously, this is terrible for graduates because it's very difficult to get those lower ranking jobs. And you obviously can't get a higher ranking job without experience. Also would be very problematic for the long-term future of those industries, because the way you get good lawyers and good coders is you have people who've gone up the professional job ladder, and now the bottom rungs, I suppose, are being hacked off. The Axios article we showed you was by Jim Vanderhei and another journalist. Jim Vanderhei is also CEO of Axios, and he spoke to MSNBC about his interview with Amodei.
In his mind, I think it's sounding the alarm. It's like, listen, we got to have a national debate that this isn't 10 years from now. It could be 6 months from now. It could be 12 months from now. Then there has to be a debate about, okay, how do you make sure that workers are prepared to use artificial intelligence to augment their work, not displace their work? That's what we've been doing at Axios. We give everybody access to the technology. We have a deal with OpenAI. We make sure that every single unit, no matter what your job is already playing with this to figure out how are you going to augment your work so you don't get displaced by it. Hell, I told my own staff, you're committing career suicide if you're not spending 10% of your day experimenting with the technology. And I don't think most people are. I think people are like, whoa, this is too science fiction, or, it's a really neat search engine. They're not actually looking at the capabilities. They don't have the time. They have real lives. But I think Dario's point was they might not wake up until it's way too late. And if lawmakers are way too late to it, you could have real issues. You could have unemployment, as he said, 10 to 20%, if he's right, which would then lead to obvious political unrest. We have Steve Bannon on the record in there saying he thinks the exact same thing is going to play out. He said Trump's not talking about it, but he thinks this will be maybe the biggest topic of the 2028 presidential election.
So Amodei sort of says, he's talking about this, Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, and because he wants sort of policymakers to get ahead of the issue. That said, Amodei is also very clear he doesn't really want his industry to be regulated anymore. And we showed you a clip earlier in the week of him saying you couldn't possibly regulate us because then China would get ahead. Somewhat self-serving argument to be making. So yeah, they don't want to be regulated in their gung-ho drive for super intelligent machines. But he is suggesting something which he thinks could be, I suppose, a sop to the general public who might be worried about all losing their jobs. So this is from Axios again. So they say, a policy idea Amodei floated with us is a token tax. Every time someone uses a model and the AI company makes money, perhaps 3% of that revenue goes to the government and is redistributed in some way. Obviously, that's not in my economic interest, he added, but I think that would be a reasonable solution to the problem. And if AI's power races ahead the way he expects, that could raise trillions of dollars. The bottom line, you can't just step in front of the train and stop it, Amodei says. The only move that's going to work is steering the train. Steer it 10 degrees in a different direction from where it was going. That can be done. That's possible. But we have to do it now. Helena, so Amodei puts this forward as sort of like, this isn't going to be in my interest, but I'm willing to do this, maybe to fund a UBI. UBI, Universal Basic Income, is the kind of thing they do talk about in Silicon Valley. But he's saying it's very generous. He's saying this technology could create trillions of dollars. So 3% of trillions is still a lot. So that's going to be all right for you plebs out there. Well, 97% of trillions is much bigger. So like, why is he only throwing us 3%? Right? If you've created this, I mean, he's suggesting it's going to be this sort of money printing machine, essentially. This technology, once you make it super intelligent, can do absolutely anything. And we're supposed to be grateful for 3%. Seems like a low ball offer for me. I'm not accepting 3% yet, at least until, if the alternative is, that none of us get to exist anymore because the AI is sort of this autonomous swarm of drones, then maybe I would. But I'm not happy about this SOP. We're supposed to say, thank you, Dario Amodei, for offering us 3% of your trillions of revenue.
What I find quite interesting, so what I compare this to is when Warren Buffett described taxation on the rich as guillotine insurance, right? I think this is essentially a similar kind of gambit where they say, no, it's fine. You can give us all the power, because a lot of these tech entrepreneurs, whilst they are definitely motivated by money, at least to some extent, a lot of them are motivated by power. And so they will almost certainly know that if the doomsaying about the future of their product becomes true, they're going to have a lot of angry plebs on their hands. And so they've got to be able to offer as little as they possibly can to get away with keeping control of the money printer itself so that they can actually be in the ones who in control of where the rest of that money goes, right? Because you've got to expect, in a world where the AI tech entrepreneurs control huge amounts of the economy, they're also going to have a really big influence on how democracy functions as well. So any tax that any government does take off them in the first place, then redistribute to everybody, is almost certainly going to be democratically, at least somewhat, potentially to a very large extent, influenced by these tech companies as well. And of course, as has always been the case and with regards to social democracy, taxation and redistribution is a bandage solution on the pre-distribution that the structure of the economy takes under free market capitalism, right? In that we have a big level of inequality and the government goes, I'm taking from you and I'm giving to you, right? You own all of the things. You're the capitalist. You own all of the actual machines that do the AI that have gotten rid of all of those jobs. I have some skepticism as to whether jobs would just immediately go, whether they would be kind of broken over time. People like Schumpeter and said different things, and maybe we'd get rid of some bullshit jobs, as David Graeber would say, but it depends on where these jobs are, how quickly they come, and how quickly the economy adapts and takes that new productivity and relocates it elsewhere, right? But if those jobs do go, then the actual extra productivity gains from those machines that controls the AI, it's only having to be redistributed away from the rich because they own those machines, because they own the bank of service or whatever it is that is in control of the artificial intelligence. There is a very easy solution that solves all of these problems without having to do any of this, which is socialism. It is public ownership, collective ownership, rather than allowing individual tech entrepreneurs who believe they're greater than God having all of this power to then deign to shower what little extra they can give back to the serfs under their technological fiefdom. Why should we rely on this when we could own it ourselves? but make it become a public good, and then all of the increases in productivity gains, which is where wealth comes from, increases in total factor productivity, could automatically be pre-distributed collectively amongst the people of society. And then if those jobs go, it doesn't matter if your job gets taken, because we are going to be able to have things like universal basic income. That means it doesn't matter. And we can shorten the working week rather than having to continue to work very long hours for low pay whilst the capitalists who own the labor saving devices take all of those additional productivity profits for themselves. We can spread that out amongst everybody and make a better, more automated luxury communist society for all of us. A girl can dream.